To anyone not in the know, a crankie is an old storytelling art form. A long illustrated scroll is wound onto two spools and loaded into a box with a viewing window. Illuminated from behind, shadow puppets help spin the tale. Music plays, stories are told, and a little bit of magic happens. The most magical of stories are usually steeped in truth. So we spoke to local historian Mark Davies.
Hi Mark, where are we today?
So we're in central Oxford, just near where the canal completed its journey into Oxford. It was finished in 1790. The waterway behind me is the Castle Mill Stream, which ran parallel to the canal. And for nearly 30 years here, just near Hythe Bridge, there was shall I show you?
Yes, please.
Which is the old Hythe Bridge here in the background. The buildings of Upper Fisher Row and what is today the Oxford Retreat Public House there. Formerly the Nag's Head, very much a boating pub.
Yeah.
But the structure on the Castle Mill Stream is this one, a floating chapel. It was the brainchild of somebody called Henry Ward, who was a coal merchant and a boat builder indeed, just on the edge of Jericho. He realised that boat people felt very conscious about going into churches. They would be travelling around the country almost constantly. And you can see how, in their kind of probably fairly rough clothes, perhaps not all that clean, they would be quite self-conscious about going into a church, and so they didn't bother. And Henry Ward and others was very concerned for their religious well-being, let's call it that. So here, this was the solution, a church which was also a boat.
Having been told this fascinating story by Mark and flicking through the pages of his book, we did further research into the history of the Oxford Canal, the elusive floating chapel, and the people that lived there. As I set about working on the scroll, the narrow space of my floating studio created its own limitations, transporting my thoughts to the large families living aboard during the Industrial Revolution, squeezing into every nook and cranny, working long, arduous days. I found myself slowing down a little, and as I scribbled and cut out card and peered out the hatch at the water, I envisaged all the past crafts that had happened aboard similar vessels. The analogue nature of a crankie struck us as apt, as a way to conjure up the canal of bygone years. The motion of the spools being turned by hand and the picture coming into view at a slow walking pace reflected those clip-clopping days out on the Oxford Canal, the girl pulling the horse, pulling the boat. Working in tandem, and all with a close affinity to boat life and the Oxford Canal, this project became a communal effort. Together we were setting sail, and we were enjoying the lesson and the sermon that came along with it.
Eventually the chapel sank, didn't it? Can you tell me exactly what happened there?
Well, yes, it did. I think it relied on philanthropy. It relied on donations from various wealthy individuals.
Micro theatre is small enough to make, perform and watch from the inside of an old cargo butty. The walls of this boat echo the stories of antiquity. The old tiller tells its tale. Ghosts wind the windlass.